Okay, let's unpack this. We have a fascinating and really detailed source profile today, focusing on the Maghrebi community in Montreal. And our mission for this deep dive is to understand how this population, we're talking largely from Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia, how it evolved.
Right.
It went from this small scattering of, students and pioneers into what it is today, one of the largest and most dynamic cultural pillars of modern Quebec.
And what's so compelling here is that evolution. The core, the absolute core unifying factor is the French language.
Right.
Unlike so many other immigrant groups arriving in North America, this community came with an immediate linguistic key. That, often coupled with a common faith, let them forge strong ties with Quebec society, almost right away.
The sources really hammer this point home, the linguistic advantage. They frame it as the key to quick integration. But I guess I want to push back on that a little. How quick was it, really? Was language the silver bullet, or were there still structural hurdles to overcome?
That's a great question. And, while French absolutely removes that first huge settlement barrier that other groups face, the sources show it's a layered process.
Okay.
What's immediately visible is the professional and the economic integration. This group is absolutely central now. It's not peripheral at all.
Right.
The Maghrebi community is one of the largest ethnocultural groups in Greater Montreal, and its influence is tangible. I mean, it's in high-tech, business, public policy. So, no, French wasn't a silver bullet for every challenge, but it was the essential passport for economic contribution and visibility.
Let's nail down the scale for you, because the sheer size it's kind of staggering. The research estimates the total population of Maghrebi origin in Greater Montreal, so that's permanent residents and citizens, at well over 150,000 people.
And if you zoom in just on the island of Montreal itself, that number becomes even more significant. Maghrebis represent, approximately 6% to 8% of the total population of the island? And that level of concentration is what provides the base for the strong cultural institutions and the visibility we're going to get into later.
That concentration, it just underscores the magnet factor. Why Montreal? And the research is crystal clear on this. It's because French is a common public language in the Maghreb.
It's the destination of choice.
Exactly. For a skilled professional in, say, Casablanca or Algiers, Montreal is often the only major North American city where their career isn't immediately stalled by a huge linguistic shift.
And that pull is constant. This isn't just some historical wave that ended decades ago.
No.
The data is crucial here. Algerians and Moroccans consistently, year after year, figure in the top 5 countries of birth for new immigrants to Montreal. That tells you this is high, sustained, ongoing growth.
To really get this community's story, you can't just look at today's numbers. You have to look at the historical map that the source material lays out. It's organized into these 3 distinct phases.
It's a textbook example of how a city's demographics are shaped by, global events on one hand and shifting domestic immigration policies on the other.
Let's start with phase 1, the pioneers. This is roughly 1960 to 1980. Low volume, very individual migration. Who were these first arrivals?
These were primarily students, professors, and established Francophone professionals. They were coming for advanced degrees or specific jobs. And crucially, the sources show them settling in places like Côte-de-Neige, Outremont, the Quartier Latin.
All near the universities.
Exactly. The area is known for their proximity to universities and professional hubs. They were the academic and professional vanguard, you could say.
That makes perfect sense. They're laying the groundwork. Small in number, but very high in intellectual capital.
Okay.
Now, the next phase is where the volume just explodes. Phase 2, from the 90s through the early 2000s. What's the catalyst?
The catalyst is one word, Algeria. And the context is political crisis. This was the Black Decade, a period of, just brutal internal conflict in Algeria.
Great.
This extreme instability created this huge wave of exiles, intellectuals, journalists, doctors, entire families fleeing violence. And Montreal, again, was the natural safe haven because of the language.
So you have this geopolitical push, a real exile crisis, happening at the exact same time as a massive governmental pull.
Precisely. This is when Quebec, for the first time, really starts to implement policies that explicitly favor Francophone immigration.
They saw the opportunity.
They did. They realized they could capture this high-quality, French-speaking human capital that was being driven into exile. And this group, because it was so much larger, started settling in new areas like Saint-Michel and Ahuntsic, really broadening the community's footprint.
Which sets the stage for the third And current era, phase 3, from 2000 to today.
Yeah.
Very high volume, and now Morocco and Tunisia are major contributors alongside Algeria. What defines this current wave?
This is almost purely economic. The source calls it selected economic immigration. Quebec had refined its recruitment model. They were facing labor shortages, especially for French-speaking skilled workers, so they started actively recruiting educated workers in the Maghreb.
So they're going right to the source.
They'll go to the source. They needed engineers, IT specialists, health professionals, and they knew exactly where to find a highly educated, linguistically prepared pool of talent.
It's the moment the community's high level of education becomes a direct economic asset for the province. And you can see this reflected in the geography, can't you?
Absolutely. The professional, family-focused nature of this wave meant they needed more space, more affordable housing.
Yeah.
So unlike the pioneers who were in the city center,
Right.
this new wave has spread out significantly. They're pushing into Saint-Léonard, Villeray, Saint-Laurent, and dramatically into the suburbs, especially Laval. The community is becoming suburbanized.
That geographical shift is a perfect segue into the community's vitality today. As it grew and moved outward, it established these deep cultural anchors. It's not just a collection of individuals anymore.
No, it's a structured, organized, and culturally rich presence. The vitality is structured around strong cultural institutions, very active places of worship, and this really unique, thriving neighborhood life.
And the undisputed,
Yeah.
the beating heart of all that has to be Petit Maghreb.
Oh, absolutely.
The iconic commercial strip on Jean Talon Street East, between Saint-Michel and Pine Heights. And the source notes it was officially designated in 2009, which made that identity official.
Petit Maghreb is where you really feel it all come together. It's a neighborhood anchored by institutions that have been there for decades. You have the Centre Culturel Américain d'Al Maghreb, Maison de la Algérie, the Association des Tunisiens de Québec. These are vital hubs.
And we have to talk about the food. For me, that's where the sources just come to life.
Yeah.
These aren't just little import shops. They are major institutions in Montreal's culinary scene.
That food scene is a massive cultural bridge. You think of the places the source highlights, Boucherie Casablanca, the specialized Épicerie Berbère, or restaurants like Le Couscous, which is a classic, or La Caïma with its unique nomadic cuisine.
Yes.
These businesses don't just serve the community, they draw in Montrealers from every single background. The cultural exchange is robust, it's sensory.
And that visibility is reinforced by these huge events.
Yeah, the large-scale public presence, things like the Festival de Montréal, the FMA, and the summer Festival Orientalese at the Old Port. These are major draws. They bring in immense crowds, which shows the culture is totally integrated into the city's calendar.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, connecting this cultural depth back to that economic story. The source is so emphatic that this community is highly educated and very active in cutting-edge sectors. This wasn't just an accident.
No, this is the return on that policy investment. When you specifically recruit skilled workers, you get these concentrations, high-value industries that are, frankly, critical to the provincial economy.
Let's get into the specifics from the source. Where are these skills concentrated?
Engineering and aerospace are huge. You see strong Maghrebi representation at major companies like Bombardier, SNC-Lavalin, Hydro-Quebec.
Right.
The sources suggest that the high educational standards in the Maghreb, particularly in technical fields, make these immigrants incredibly valuable for Quebec's industrial base.
And that extends into the modern digital economy, which Montreal is famous for.
Oh, for sure. Montreal is a major hub for AI and video games, and the sources point to a high concentration of developers and technicians from the Maghreb in those specialized IT fields. We also see it in health and pharmacy, tons of pharmacists and researchers.
And beyond climbing the corporate ladder, the entrepreneurial spirit is just incredibly strong. This ties back to Petit Maghreb.
It does. While they're active in restaurants and food importation, they also dominate certain segments of retail trade. That entrepreneurship is what revitalizes those neighborhood commercial streets we were talking about.
But the innovation goes beyond traditional retail. The source points to some really cutting-edge business stories.
That's right. One of the most famous examples is Mohammed Haig, the founder of Lufa Farms. He was a pioneer in urban rooftop farming.
A huge innovation.
A massive innovation that has fundamentally changed how Montreal thinks about local food. The source also mentions Noureddine Bassadi, a key tech entrepreneur. It proves the community isn't just filling jobs, they're creating new economic ecosystems.
That professional foundation has naturally led to the emergence of these highly visible, influential public figures. Let's talk about arts and culture first.
You have some of the biggest names in Francophone humor. Richard Badouri, Mehdi Boussadan, Adib El-Khalideh. They're constantly on Quebec TV and radio, shaping the cultural conversation.
And the impact is reaching far beyond Quebec. I mean, think of Monique Chokri, an actress and director who's gained serious international acclaim, including at Cannes.
And musical talent, too, like Linda Felly or Nadia Esadika Lebrons. This cultural output just speaks to the maturity and the confidence of the community.
And their emergence in politics and intellectual life is just as robust. We see representation across the political spectrum.
Which signals a deep integration into civic life. You have members of the National Assembly MNAs like Marwa Riski and Monsef Daraji for the Liberals and Haroun Bouazi for Quebec Solidaire.
The fact that they're in different parties shows this active, diverse engagement.
Exactly. And they're shaping public discourse, too.
Yeah.
Figures like Jamila bin Habib, the essayist and secular activist, or Roshan Antonius, a prominent sociologist at UQAM who specializes in migration. Their voices are central to these ongoing debates.
That's quite a journey. We started with a few students in the 1960s, and 60 years later, we have this highly educated, recognized, and economically vital force. So what does this all mean when you pull back and look at the whole picture?
It means the synergy worked. Targeted immigration policy, that critical linguistic connection with French, and the high levels of education in the Maghreb, it created a win-win. The community used its foundation to meet Quebec's specific structural economic needs. And the result is the deep cultural richness and economic dynamism we see today, all symbolized by the lifeblood of a place like Petit Maghreb.
It's a profound testament to the value of skilled, targeted immigration.
And that leads us to a final thought for you to consider. Given Quebec's documented ongoing need for specialized Francophone labor in IT, AI, aerospace, the very sectors this community excels in. How might that continued recruitment further shift the demographic balance and, crucially, the physical geography? That trend towards suburbanization in places like Laval over the next decade. Will the community center of gravity shift completely off the island? It's a story that's still being written on the city's map.
That is a fascinating place to leave our deep dive. Thank you for sharing your sources with us. We'll catch you next time.